Okay, and we are good to go.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It is now 7:02. I officially call the meeting to order here for the Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals regular meeting, public hearing held remotely. And I'll just read the blurb that's on the top of the agenda for this evening. Meeting will be held remotely with no physical meeting location. Those seeking to provide public input should do so using the methods listed below. Video and audio of the meeting will be aired on Comcast Local TV 9 at a later date. A live recording of the meeting will be available on the Town of Dayton YouTube channel, which can be accessed using this link. The link is down below. Public input may be provided using the following methods. We have contact the office at the letter KEASTERDAY at Dayton-ma.gov. Use the subject line ZBA and then today's date 10/27/21 public input and include your name and address for the record. Or you may call 508-669-6431 extension 114 during the meeting. You may leave a voicemail if necessary and then join the meeting on the Zoom link or dial by location 646-558-8656. Meeting ID 939-1182-4424. Passcode 51027. So, in lieu of a pledge of allegiance today, we will just be holding a moment of silence for those going through the pandemic of the COVID-19.
Give us an opportunity to concentrate on Main Street and patch up roads that need attention.
All right. Before we're going, is there anyone whose mic is not muted?
Case by case basis.
Carrie, I'm not sure. Are you able to mute people?
Gary, you're muted.
Carrie's muted?
Yes, I am. I'm able to mute. I'm just trying to, I don't know who that is. So once I determine who that is, I'll be happy to.
Okay. All right. So first things first, we are going to jump right into, first things first, we're going to confirm the next meeting date. In case any of these meetings are continued tonight. The reason why we especially want to set this meeting date, so people who are abutters or have to make plans to attend the next meeting can do so well in advance. However, I don't know if this has ever happened before, but both of our meetings this year, monthly meetings, fall on Thanksgiving and Christmas Day. We've had run-ins where it was like Christmas Eve or the day before Thanksgiving, but I don't think we've ever had it fall. I mean, Thanksgiving is a Thursday, but had it affected by both holidays like that, so such drastically. So, Carrie, what are our options in terms of the town calendar?
So the town calendar, excuse me, if we do the week before for both November and December, if we do the week before or even the week after, I can't do the Wednesdays because I have the planning board meetings on those.
Yep.
I'm free, during the week, either Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday. So the week before, the week after.
Yep.
The other, and as far as location, we could also do it by Zoom once again. And I am told that a new location for meetings at the Primetime Building is now available. So that's an option as well. And I did speak to the Selectman's office, and the Primetime Building is available for those dates. So if you're looking to have an in-person meeting, it would be not at the old town hall. It would be at the Primetime Building.
Yep.
Is cable all set for that over there, Carrie?
I'm sorry?
Is cable all set over there at the Primetime Building?
I'm told they are. I don't think they've had a test run yet. I don't think they've had an official meeting yet to see if it's streamlined and ready to go, but it sounded like everything was set up and ready to go. But they haven't had an official meeting yet. So We
Gary,
will.
if we meet over there,
The only
we-
issue I have with that is that I don't, it was just to kind of nip this in the bud now, I cannot confirm that I'll be around to do, in-person meeting. I have a couple, locations for work opening up in Lowell
Okay.
and in Townsend, Mass. So I'm gonna be working during the week, so I'm probably not gonna, I'll be too far away to come home for a night. So
Okay.
I don't know if it's, if everyone else wants to meet in person and someone else wants to run the meeting, or if I can be there remotely. If you guys can all meet in person, that's fine. But just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Gary, if we meet at prime time, do we know how many people that room can hold?
I haven't gotten a capacity number on that yet. I was hoping that town hall would be open today so I could confirm that, but unfortunately I was unable to. So of course we have that issue as well. So, sorry.
I personally, this is Jonathan, I would personally suggest that at least our next meeting still be via Zoom, partly because of Zach's schedule, partly because to plan without knowing how many people we can seat there, depending upon what's on the agenda, would be a question mark as well.
Yeah, it doesn't seem
Right.
feasible yet anyway. I mean, it's looking more promising that we can at some point soon, but I just, at least through this calendar year is gonna be rough for me.
Okay.
So, but we do also need a date still. So that being said, if it's remotely, we don't really have much of a restriction, right, Gary?
No, especially if it's remotely, we're pretty wide open.
Okay, so,
With the exception of, the 17th, I won't be able to do because I have planning board. And the December 1st, I don't know if you're looking to push it out that week.
so I guess one thing we gotta keep in mind too is that if this case, if anything continued tonight does involve Marguerite, we need to make sure that she's top priority in that sense. I mean, she can't be there, and if she needs to be there, we can't do that date. So I guess it's first we should turn to her and see what she can and can't do coming up.
Okay.
Looking at the weeks that Carrie mentioned, the week before November and the week after November, I'm not available on the Thursday, but I would be available on the Wednesday. I'm sorry, on the Tuesday. You said you start at 7, is that right?
Yep.
So Tuesday, the 16th or Tuesday, the 30th, I would be able to attend a meeting. I just couldn't do the Thursday.
All right, Zach, Greg Logan here. I'm out of town on the 13th to the 20th, so I would have to do the 6th
Okay.
or the 30th that she's stating.
I mean, the 30th works well for me. Does the 30th have anybody else?
30th works for Jonathan.
Okay, Dad?
That's 7 PM, correct?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, and Susan?
Give her 1 second. She's trying to unmute herself.
Okay.
Okay, so the date you're talking about is gonna be the 16th,
No, the 30th.
the
30th.
30th? Oh, okay. Okay, all right, I'll do that.
All right, so that's what we'll set as a meeting date, and that's gonna be again, that will definitely be, in, through Zoom, for sure.
Okay. So November 30th, 7 PM via Zoom.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we will go into, the first, case right in order on the agenda today. We have the public hearing for the variance application, Rita A. Arujo and Thomas W. Arujo, 0 and 1423 William Street, map 12, lot 30 and lot 30-4, case 0321. So if the applicant is here or the attorney representing the applicant or developer, if they would go ahead, they can.
Zach,
Oh, sorry, we need a three
need
vote.
3 voting members first.
Yeah,
Yep,
right.
yep.
So,
Just caught me.
So-
Go ahead.
so the
Somebody-
3 voted, this is for which case? I'm sorry. Like, Zach, you were fading in and out.
Yep, it's 0321.
It's for the William Street, the 1423 William Street property.
Okay. For the 3 voting members then, I would ask Peter, Karen. I would ask Greg and myself, Jonathan.
Okay, all right, sorry about that. Go right ahead.
Zach, you got to read the notice first too.
Okay, Terry, do you have the notice you can read, or John, as the clerk, if you want to read it, you can. But-
Sure, I can read it.
Okay.
Legal notice, Town of Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals, Wednesday, October 27th, 2021 at 7 PM, held remotely on Zoom. Notice is hereby given that the Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals will conduct a public hearing on the variance application of Rita A. Arujo and Thomas A. Arujo for the property, excuse me, located at 0 and 1423 William Street, shown on Assessor's Map number 12, lots number 30 and 30-4, pursuant to sections 2918, Establishment of Overlay District, and Appendix A, Section D10 of the Town of Dayton zoning bylaw, in order to utilize a driveway that is partially located in a residential zoning district to access industrial district for the purpose of a proposed marijuana establishment, cultivation only. Members of the public attending this hearing virtually will be allowed to comment on the proposal during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment. Members of the public seeking instructions for attending and participating in the hearing or seeking copies of the plans should contact the Zoning Board of Appeals at 508-669-6431, extension 114, or by email at keasterday@dayton-ma.gov. Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals, Zachary Karen, Chairman.
All right. So if the applicant is ready, or if the attorney representing the applicant or developer would like to go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is Attorney Mitchell.
Yep.
I believe there was some correspondence received because it's my understanding there may be a request to continue this case, so we don't want to take testimony in this case right now.
Okay, so we're going to want to, Terry, can you just pull out, if you want to put it on the screen, and use correspondence or read it into the record?
Sure, I'm just gonna pull that up right now. So, it says, hold on, I gotta just move a couple things so I can read it.
Yep.
Bear with me. Dear Carrie, as I discussed with Attorney Mitchell, and as I believe she discussed with you, I am requesting. Sorry, my screen is getting in the way for me to read. I am requesting that tonight's hearing be continued for approximately 1 month. In addition to the reasons discussed with Attorney Mitchell, I have a personal situation that has come up that will prevent me from being present tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Attorney Marguerite, is there, you want to respond to the letter, or do you not have any comment to make at this time?
No, I don't have any comments other than to say that I think the board is within its right to vote to accept this request for a continuance. And if it does so without taking any testimony on the matter, then the public hearing is not yet opened. And at the request of the developer, this is a developer's request, that would mean that any timelines are accordingly extended for when you open the public hearing if you do so.
Okay, so that being said, we need a motion to continue.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr. Gale. I would make a motion that we continue the hearing for William Street. I do not have the number in front of me to cite. I will ask somebody else to do that, but that this hearing be continued until our next available date of November 30th at 7 p.m.
And is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
All right. So we
Sorry,
continue.
Mr. Karen,
Yep.
Chairman Karen, I just want to be sure. I missed, maybe that was just me with my connection. I missed I heard member Gal say aye and member Karen say aye, and I believe the third voting member is Mr. Logan.
Hi, Greg Logan. I'm sorry, I was muted.
That's okay. Beauty of Zoom. Thank you.
All right. So that being said, with this case has been continued to the next month's meeting. So we'll go right into the second part of this application. We have the variance application for Binda Estate LLC, 0 Brook Street, map lot, map 17, lot 160-1, case 0421. And again, John, if you could have 3 voting members, please, and then Terry, if you want to read what the posting and again that.
Sure.
The three voting,
Mr. Chairman, can we have a discussion before we start this public hearing? We're also concerned about having enough voting members. So if there are not enough voting members to this evening, we
Are
only
you a
have
member of the public,
3
sir?
members. No, I'm the principal of MBL Land Development and Permitting. We're the
Okay.
ones that prepared the plans for Mr. Binder.
Okay, and I'm sorry, there's a question about if we have enough voting members?
Yes, sir.
All members are present. So we have
Oh.
enough member, and then
Yep.
they just choose 3 voting members from the zoning board of appeals members. So all members
Okay.
are present.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr. Gale. The 3 voting members that I would select for this one would be Peter Karen, Greg Logan, and yourself.
Okay. And Terry, if you can just read the notice, please.
Sure. Do we want to make the disclosure first?
Yes.
Peter, Karen?
Oh, yeah. So it's been a while since I have to do this, but with my father and I being related, it's just to avoid any kind of conflict of interest. If the applicant sees an issue with that, we can rearrange the voting members. If they don't see any issue, then we can presume as the voting members have been assigned. Does the applicant have any reason to object this?
Mike, do you have any objection to that?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
Okay. So legal notice, Town of Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals, Wednesday, October 27th, 2021 at 7 p.m. held remotely on Zoom. Notice is hereby given that the Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals will conduct a public hearing on the variance application of Binda Estate LLC for the property located at 0 Brook Street, shown on Assessor's Map number 17, Lot 160-1, pursuant to sections 2600 and 2620, Appendix B of the Town of Dayton zoning bylaw, in order to construct a single-family dwelling with insufficient frontage located in a residential agricultural district. Members of the public attending this public hearing virtually will be allowed to comment on the proposal during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment. Members of the public seeking instructions for attending and participating in the hearing or seeking copies of the plans should contact the zoning board of appeals at 508-669-6431, extension 114, or by email at keysterday@dayton-ma.gov. Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals, Zachary Karen, Chairman. Forgive me.
All right, the applicant or developer can go right ahead and just present the case.
Thank you. Good evening, Attorney Brianna Carrera with an office at 123 Broadway in Taunton. I'm present tonight for the variance petition for Brook Street. I'm also joined by the project's engineers from MBL Land Development and Permitting. We'd like to first thank the chairman and the members of the board for your time tonight and the opportunity to appear before you with our request on behalf of our client, Binda Estate LLC. We're here before you tonight to respectfully request a variance from section 2620, Appendix B, column 12 for frontage. As shown on the plans that we had submitted with our application, the lot before you is parcel 17-160-1 on Brook Street. It has over 200,000 square feet. It's actually 5.6 acres. And it has 169.66 feet of frontage on Brook Street. The parcel meets all other zoning requirements or dimensional requirements of the bylaws, actually exceeding those minimum requirements with the exception, of course, of frontage. Since city sewer is not available at this location, the frontage required, of course, you're aware, is the 250 feet. Otherwise, we would only be requesting a variance from the 175 requirement. With regard to city water, the engineers have been in communication with both Somerset and Dayton water departments. Somerset has a 12-inch water main that is available, and we do have access from our lot to that main. And Somerset Water has also indicated that it is willing to accept and review an application to tie into that water main if this variance is allowed. As far as the hardship that is relative and unique to this parcel, the lot has a very unusual shape, with it being more narrow towards the front where it has frontage on Brook Street and wider towards the rear. Additionally, the hardship results from the unique topography in the front of the parcel where the frontage is along Brook Street. And I'm sure the engineers can probably speak in greater detail to that condition, but essentially the hardship here results from the elevation of the wetlands that's at the very front of the site where the frontage is. And that has led to constraints on what would otherwise be permitted use here in this area. Initially, the engineers had explored what options might be available to try to meet the frontage and not have to come for a variance. But this option included maybe putting in a roadway to create some frontage here and proposing a subdivision. I believe the subdivision that we explored considered 4 lots, and we do have plans available to show you what those plans looked like if you wish to see those. But this potentially created more frontage, except because of this elevation located at the front of the site, it was found to be pretty impracticable to meet the town's stormwater standards for the subdivision here. So not saying that they can't do it without waivers, but you know, this is part of the reason why we're coming before you tonight with our petition for a variance for frontage. Now, through this petition, we're not requesting for a subdivision or a road, or it's just a driveway with a single family home on over 5 acres of land, which we submit fits well within this neighborhood. The home would be placed farther back from the street, from Brook Street, as mentioned, over 5 acres of land, and it would meet all other zoning dimensional requirements. Therefore, we submit that this would be the least intrusive option, if you will, since we aren't looking to create 2 non-conforming lots from 1 non-conforming lot or anything to that effect. Rather, we're simply just asking for the petitioner to have the ability to use its land, which it appears he would not otherwise be able to without the requested variance because of the hardship or without a waiver of stormwater standards. In other words, literal enforcement of this section of the bylaw would result in a substantial hardship to the petitioner. Lastly, in comparison to the surrounding properties, our proposed lot's frontage, when you're looking at the other properties, it's rather consistent. It's not drastically less. And if I can share, I'm not sure if I have the ability to share my screen.
I can, if you give me 1 second.
Sure.
I will make you a co-host so you can do so.
Thank you.
You should be all set.
Excellent. So let's see here. So based on the information that's available in the assessor's database, as you can see here, the 5 lots that are shown with a red dot. Can you see it?
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm very sorry to interrupt. I was initially, I'm sorry, my name's Jessica Rogers. My mother and I were given information for the 6 o'clock town meeting initially, and we were involved in that and then realized this was a separate meeting. So I just wanted to interrupt and let you know that I'm just joining.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I continue?
Yes, of course, yep.
Thank you. So if you can see my screen here, the 5 parcels, they're developed lots, mind you. I did not look at the undeveloped, but developed lots have less frontage than the 169 feet of frontage that we are proposing. And then a total of 14 at least, which would be including those with the red dots and then the additional with blue dots, those all have less than the required 250 feet of frontage, which is required here. And it does not appear that sewer is available for those properties on Brook Street. So it may be that these lots were developed at a time when the required frontage maybe was less than 250, I'm not sure, but nevertheless, they were successfully developed with less than the 250 feet of frontage and without sewer. Based on this comparison, the petitioner would submit that the desirable relief of a frontage variance here, just for one single family home, may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or the neighborhood. And we would suggest that the requested relief and proposal is in alignment with the intent or purpose of your bylaws, particularly to encourage the most appropriate use of the land, which we feel one single family home is an appropriate use here. It's for those reasons that we'd respectfully request this honorable board to grant our variance relief tonight. And at this time, the engineers and I would certainly be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Board members first, please.
Sorry, Zach, you were broken up. What'd you say?
Any questions first of board members?
Yeah, I have a few.
Yep.
So I believe there's a little misunderstanding on frontage. It's 175 feet and it's with water, nothing to do with sewer. Secondly, the driveway width, I'm a little confused. Can you pull up back to the picture that you had put up? So right now I'm taking it as this piece of parcel is one large parcel, or is the one to the bottom left along the street already subdivided? Or is this still one large piece at this time?
Are you referring to, I'm trying to pull up the map right now. Are you
one you
referring to the
submitted to
parcel
the
that's
board.
labeled 160?
The one you submitted to the board.
Mm-hmm.
Along the frontage of Brook Street, I'm seeing one parcel. I can't read it. It says Tammy and Donald. And is that they own the entire parcel right now and trying to subdivide this, or has this already been subdivided?
No, this was subdivided several years ago. I believe
Okay.
it was done in 2001. The parcel there was an A&R plan that was recorded in 2001, and it was a Form A for that front lot that you're seeing there that's separate from this lot here.
Right. So a couple of things in lots of this stuff like that we've had in the past. You're asking about a frontage relief. That's all you're asking for this board, right?
Yes.
All right. You do know that you're touching a 100-foot no-touch zone on your driveway.
I'm sorry, what is that? Where
The
what?
100-foot no-touch zone has nothing to do with the board. That'd be something with another board. And furthermore, the driveway doesn't.
What no touch zone is that, Mr. Vice Chairman?
At the street. You have a
You mean
driveway.
the buffer zone to the wetlands?
Yes.
Oh, that's not a no touch zone. That's a buffer zone that
Are you
requires us to
within-
go
are you
to the
within
conservation.
Are you within the 100 feet of that?
For the driveway, yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm just trying to, I'm trying to look at the entire parcel here. Now then, how wide is your driveway proposed at this time?
It's 12 feet wide, and we have 4-foot clear space on either side for fire access.
And how long is the driveway?
It's 322 feet long.
All right. In order for that, also, the fire department has to give us the blessing for that driveway.
Yep, we can show them a turnaround if required.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is going to something they're going to be
Yep.
looking for. So the width, so it was subdivided, you're at 166.66, and you're trying to go to the 175, which was approximately 8.5 feet.
Yep.
Yes, 169.66.
Okay. That's all I have at this time. I'm sure there's some other voting members that I got some questions on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Anybody else?
No, I'm all set, Zach.
All right. Is there any member of the public that has any questions for the applicant? And just make sure you state your name and address for the record, please.
Notifications.
Carrie, anyone trying to, do you have any written correspondence today?
I do have one, if you give me 1 second. I gotta bring up the email that I received from a Maurice Joyce.
Yep.
That was received this evening at 4:38. So if you bear with me so I can do a share screen.
Yep.
And I would like to apologize to the board for the video. I still don't have power here in Somerset. So I'm in my truck using the Wi-Fi. I have better technology in my truck than I do at home.
That's okay. In fact, we're, if we have to continue it, because, I mean, Carrie, I don't think anyone has had any issues trying to get into you, right, for contacting?
So far, no, I've got no phone calls,
Okay.
just some emails. So I do have this email that was received late this evening at 4:38 from a Maurice Joyce of 399 Brook Street. He does say, I believe that the attached should be of interest to the honorable mentions of the Zoning Board of Appeals before any decision is made on the above referenced matter. The property in question in case number 04210 Brook Street was formerly part of a property at 461 Brook Street owned by Fannie Lima, Bonnie Hathaway's mother. Bonnie and her husband William were the grantors in a deed to Binda Estate LLC a number of years ago. The house lot was subdivided from the rest of the property, 0 Brook Street, and sold. According to the records of the Massachusetts Historical Commission, excuse me, the property that Binda Estates LLC seeks to develop is part of the listed property with the Massachusetts Historical Commission. That said property contains items of historical significance going back to the first contact period and beyond. This area of significance continues across Brook Street. See attachment for 462 Brook Street, which I can bring it up in a minute. Within the last 2 weeks, National Grid has had a team of archaeological consultants working on the north side of Brook Street in the right-of-way, finding evidence of first contact and before, as well as more current artifacts. These same artifacts have also done work to the south of Brook Street within the subject property that Binda Estate LLC proposes to develop with similar findings. At the very least, notice should be given to various local tribal groups of the Native American peoples as they have possible interest in the site. So if you give me 1 minute.
Yep.
So this is the information, if you can see that, right?
I can't say anything yet personally.
We just can see the email, Carrie.
Just
Yeah.
the email? Okay,
Yeah.
so give me 1 second. Hopefully I can bring it up. I don't know if. All right, bear with me for a minute while I figure this out.
That's fine.
So it's not allowing me to complete the extraction. The destination file could not be created. I don't know what that means.
If you right click on the file, Carrie,
Yeah,
it's from what I know, I think it's, can you try saving the files that you're unzipping to your desktop?
yeah, that's what I'll try.
I wish there was a way for me to control your screen from here. Cause
I know, right?
I mean, I know how to unzip files, but it's kind of hard when so you can't even show me exactly what, is there a way for you to show me?
I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
Beautiful.
All right, so Are you able to see that or are you still on email?
Still on the email for me.
Okay, give me 1 second. I want to try one more thing.
Can you decide like drag and drop the document into the way you would, if you like, let's say you were going to show like a file, can you just do it that way? As
Yeah,
opposed
that's what I'm gonna do now.
to, okay.
So. All right. There it is. All right, here it is.
Okay.
Okay. So this is page 1. Scanned record cover page. Do you want me to read this, do you?
I mean, there's no way for Jonathan Gale to see it, unfortunately. I mean, without.
Okay, so it looks like it's the Mass Cultural Resource Information System has converted this paper record to digital format as part of the ongoing projects to scan records of the inventory of historic assets of Commonwealth and National Register of Historic Places nominations for Massachusetts. Efforts are ongoing and not all inventory and National Register records related to this resource may be available in digital format. So this is saying that the house of 462.
If you want to scroll it, okay, I think that's just
okay.
This is the cover page for it. So it looks like they I'm not sure if this is from what Mr. Joyce's from an email. I'm not sure if he's saying this is in fact officially labeled a historic property, or if it's an application to be considered to be labeled. That I don't know. Not that that really matters, that detail right now, but I mean, maybe we'll get that answer by the end of it. But this picture here is showing, it looks like the house from, there's no date on it, but if you want to keep scrolling, Carrie, this is just describing the narrative of it, the type of house it was, excuse me.
Second record.
It looks like a different address possibly.
Yeah, this looks like it's just specifically to one address, not necessarily all of these parcels of land.
Right. If you see there, it's what, 561, I think that said.
461
Yeah,
and 462.
Which is not our property site.
Right. And
Across the street is Good Bible.
Yeah, across the street though, it says Greek
yeah,
life.
I think that sentence is just describing the architecture of the houses on the street nearby, saying that, oh, there are houses in the area that are similar, have similar architecture, which, okay, I could have built my house last year and built the same architecture. Like, I mean, that's, you know, unless we have a document saying that, no, this specific property is being labeled historic, I don't really see. I understand that the historical commission is looking at the area, but I mean, I don't think we have anything in writing saying, oh no, this property is in fact one of them. And I think from what I understand, Mr. Joyce's letter just advised that we take that into consideration, that the area is being considered historic, Carrie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can we go back to page 7?
Page 7?
Yeah.
Sure. There you go.
Probably is this. So if you read historical narratives.
Yeah. You're muted, Greg.
That's probably what I was reading. Okay. Yeah, so it does say a few things in that area of historical narrative about how there was a grist mill, probably, as it's listed next to the house on this map. So it's not specifically stating that one piece of property. That's what I see.
Right.
It's not.
And actually, and if I may, the grist mill would have been up against the Saragansett River for power.
I agree. Yep.
Right, yeah, good point.
Thank God I went to the grist mill for dinner quite a few times.
Terry, is Mr. Joyce here on the call this evening that he wants to share any kind of thoughts he has? I mean, if he's in a butter, or if he, as a member of the public, if he has any comments he'd like to make, he can. I thought I saw his name in the beginning, but I'm not sure if I do anymore.
You did. So he is in a butter, and he is.
I mean, he just sort of doesn't have.
He is online, but he's muted. I don't know, Mr. Joyce. There he is. Okay.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, good. The Hathaway property, it looks like when I scanned, they went in an improper order. The Hathaway property that the developer purchased encompassed not only the land that they're trying to build on, but a small house that was next to it. It was the Fannie Lima house. It all comes out of the Costa family. That stretch of property has just been examined by an archaeological company for National Grid, and they have found historic artifacts on the property. And some of them are contact artifacts, and some of them predate contact. And that is why I suggest that notice be given to the local tribes in the area or their representatives. Ramona Peters down in Mashpee is one of them. Roger DeRocher, who lives locally, is another one. But all these sites are Native American when you find these type of artifacts. And it raises some serious questions. And when these properties were put in under the Mass Historic Commission, it was not just the house, but it was the whole property that was put in. Yes, the grist mill was across the street from it, but this and they also looked. Were doing research across the street as well, in the Ray Perry house. I've forgotten what the prior owner's name was, but it's the property across the street from the subject property. That's where the grist mill was. But
Okay.
The issue becomes, it has a historic or an archaeological examination been done on the property by the builder.
Are you asking the builder that? Is that what you're doing? Okay. If you would like to.
If Mr. Chairman, if we could try to address this one.
Yep.
You know, reading the email from the abutter, thank you for that email. Appreciate it. To get a little bit better understanding of the area. Two, it sounds like the description of the work that National Grid was doing on the site was not specific to a archaeological dig. It was more per se towards doing some borings for future use of their easement.
So they were actually doing digs. They had teams of people out there examining for artifacts.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, please.
Yep.
We were told by writing that the National Grid was only doing borings within their easements, and nothing else. There was no information to the owner of the property in regards to any official archaeological dig to search for artifacts of any kind. This is really news to us as well as the property owner. And I think that based on the email and the information that we've seen and heard this evening, that their location of their dig is pretty much along the right of way, the northern part of the site, based on what the information has been given to us this evening. So where the house is
Both
going,
sides of the street. is
And,
what
excuse me,
I'm
Mr.
trying to
Chairman.
tell you.
Mr. Dunn, so you said you have heard correspondence from National Grid?
yes, they gave
Okay.
us a letter in writing in
Okay.
regards to them doing test pits and borings on the site.
Isn't
Oh,
boring,
Mr.
sir.
No,
Chairman,
no,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Joyce,
point
you're
of
not.
order, please.
Yes, Mr. Joyce, you're not being addressed by the chairman, so you cannot speak until you're addressed by the chairman.
I apologize.
Mr. Dunn, you can continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So we received a letter from National Grid about the borings that they were planning on doing, or new utility poles for the overhead wires, because I know that most of these easements have been upgraded to newer types of steel and aluminum type of structures. So they would be doing that for proposed new towers for these overhead wires. So there was no information in regards to any archaeological dig that they were proposing or having any type of experts out there to verify that that's actually is the case. So without contacting National Grid, that's all the information that we have from the owner of the property at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, is that John?
Yes, it is. It's Mr. Gale.
Sure.
I'm gonna suggest at this point, because this I can see where this is going back in terms of where we may be leading this a little bit. And it may make sense. First of all, I think regardless that this hearing ultimately in the end will have to be continued, partly because of the discussion we're currently in, and partly because there may be residents who want to join. And as we all know, many residents in the town of Dayton still are without power and may not be able to join. Putting those two components together as well, we may want to consider asking, and I don't know if this is appropriate or not, I'd like to hear from the other members, asking the Dayton Historical Commission to weigh in on this, not necessarily as to whether or not this is a historical site, although they may have information that we're not privy to. But I would think that if there is potentially some kind of an archaeological potential dig, as was already indicated here, that they or research going on, that they may be aware of that they could shed light on. In either way case, I think it would make sense to at least hear from the Historical Commission before we consider any other options, such as bringing in any of the tribal elders or tribes involved and so forth. That may not be necessary, but we may be told by the Historical Commission that it is.
I mean, I'm just one person, but personally, I don't see the need for, especially if National Grid has already confirmed with the applicant they're free to proceed when it comes to their surveying. But
Mr. Chairman, Greg Logan, is
Yep.
there any way we could have that National Grid letter sent over to the Kerry and added to the record, just to confirm we have it on file?
If the applicant can send it in, that would be great. I mean, if they have it.
I can ask Mr. Binder if he wouldn't mind sharing it, as long as he still has it. And just as a point of information, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we still have to file with National Grid for the construction of this home. And if there were any other issues that would arise based on their review, that's where some of this archaeological stuff would come out as well.
Right.
So, but I doubt very much that National Grid had an archaeological team, doing borings for new overhead wire towers. So it doesn't sound right to me.
Right. And John, I understand what you're saying here, but you have to remember what the zoning board is tasked on ruling on, and what we have to look at when we are looking at a variance So, I feel like sometimes a lot of cases that we deal with, we feel like we might want to hear from a board where, I'm not saying it's not relevant, but it's just not within our jurisdiction. I mean, we can't say, oh, well, I'm voting no on this because it may be historic property. I mean, that's not something relevant that we would be going into. So I think if there are any other hoops or hurdles where that does come into play, I think there are other facets in which that will come about. I just don't think that's anything that the zoning board personally needs to be factoring into their decision making. I don't know how Greg or Peter.
I would tend to agree with you, Mr. Chairman. If I may make a suggestion, what we've seen in other permits coming out of the zoning board, planning board, conservation, city council approvals in other cities and towns, is that there's some language in the approval that requires the applicant to apply for and obtain all state, federal, and additional local permitting as required and necessary for the construction of the project.
Right.
So it requires us to go to these other boards to seek the right approvals. If that's historical, then it's historical. If it's National Grid, it's National Grid. If it's conservation, it's conservation. But you're right. You're here on a variance on frontage, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, exactly. Greg or John, do you feel differently?
I'm just gonna say how I feel. I do want a letter regardless from National Grid sent to the zoning board of appeals stating what they were doing out there if there was no archaeological dig on that property. Secondly, I definitely would like the applicant to get with the fire department like we've done in the past and make sure the road width for the driveway is sufficient and the turnaround is correct. As we stated, he does say he has to go in front of other members and other boards in regards to conservation. That's another hurdle. I was just letting him know that that's a hurdle that we can do all this work now and get shot down later. That's totally up to the applicant. Mr. Dunn feels he can do that. That's fine with me. But as I state, I want the letter from the National Grid to be brought to the Kerry showing that there is no archaeological dig on the property before I go any further with this.
And Mr. Chair, that's the direction that I'm coming from. I have not necessarily any objection to putting language in there as stated by the applicant. Obviously, as Mr. Logan said, they're going to have to go in front of other boards, commissions to get what they need. But I do want some language in there because my concern is that potentially we could be approving a variance for something that in essence, we should have been given information in order to make that as a conscious decision. So if we're not going to be given that information beyond the letter, or unless something is brought to us at the continuation of the hearing, then I think at this point, it does behoove us to consider language.
Is there anyone else that had any questions or I should say, is there any other abutters first that haven't spoken yet? Carrie, or do you have any other written correspondence?
Carrie, you're muted.
Sorry.
It's all right. I just noticed I was not even on a video during that whole thing. Jesus.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to double check my emails.
And if Mr. Chairman, while Kerry's looking for other things,
Sure.
We would be okay if the board would so grant the petition this evening with conditions and language that the vice chairman came up with about going to other boards, going to see the fire department and providing that letter. I'm sure that Mr. Binder can provide that letter that was probably sent to him 3 or 4 months ago.
Okay.
If that's okay with the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I have no further correspondence received for the matter. And I don't know if anyone else from the public wants to participate.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
I had sent Kerry some weeks ago after I received the notice, copies of deeds for the acquisition by the builder. And I have copies of the emails if she is unable to find them that I sent, where his petition was done improperly. He had signed it as an individual, and he has since amended the petition. So the original petition was flawed.
Correct.
By the
Well,
ZBA.
But you said he's amended it, correct, Carrie?
yes, he has amended.
Then that's that.
Yep.
But Mr. Joyce, I did not receive your email. We had a phone discussion, but I didn't receive an email.
I did. I sent you copies of the deeds, and I have copies of the emails in my archive.
Okay, well, if you could send that to me again, because I
will
have
do that
nothing in my
now.
files.
I will do that.
Yep, and I did have a discussion with our council who suggested that we either requested at tonight's meeting to submit an amended application.
Yep.
Either prior to or do it at tonight's meeting, and the applicant has submitted the amended
I saw
application,
that.
signing as the manager,
That's correct.
and that makes it okay.
That's correct.
So that's been done and corrected.
I don't think there's any more discussion that needs to be had on that.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr. Gale. I am going to make a motion at this point. I'm going to suggest what I mentioned a few moments ago, that the hearing be continued to our next meeting, because there may be members of the public who want to be able to participate, and we're not able to participate this evening because a significant amount of the town is still out of power. So I would make a motion that this hearing be kept open and continued to our next meeting of November 30th, if that fits the applicant's schedule.
I just want to make sure before we do that, I want to make sure that there's no more comments or questions amongst the developer or the board or the or abutters first before we go and make any kind of motions on that. If we're not done tonight discussing it, is there anything else that needs to be any questions or comments or anything?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Greg
Chairman.
Logan. I'm sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go
No,
ahead,
Mr.
I'm
Vice
sorry.
Chairman, go ahead.
So like I say, I don't think it's detrimental to the neighborhood. It meets all the requirements minus this frontage.
Yeah.
I am familiar with this area, and there is a lot of houses that have a lot less frontage. It does have this well over the square footage. It's just a few questions and concerns that I had.
Yeah.
I just feel that those things, I know, I looked at it and I saw conservation issues, and I know we had not with the board, but I just wanted to let the petitioner know, that's going to be a hurdle they're going to have to go over later with someone else.
Yeah.
That's okay, but I just wanted to bring that up. And the driveway looking at different things that we've done in the past, I don't believe it's wide enough, so it's going to make you even go more approaching onto the no touch zone by what we've done in the past with the fire department and the turnaround. So those are just a few things I wanted to bring up. And other than that, like I say, I'm not opposed to the actual parcel. I know we're not voting on it right now. I think everything else looks fine. It's more of those few questions, and I'm not doubting anyone. I just definitely would like to see that letter from the National Grid to put into the record. So when it does come up next time, well, hey, we had a letter from National Grid saying that this is what they did on that property, not that.
Yep.
Mr.
right.
Chairman, if I may.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Thank you. Not to repeat what Mr. Vice Chairman had just mentioned, but the applicant will be more than happy to provide that letter and certainly to address any issues before the other boards of conservation, as well as if there is any historical issues here, it would be dealt with that commission. But as far as we're aware, that was other properties, and certainly the Form A too that was previously recorded in 2001 makes no mention of anything of that sort. So we would be more inclined to, if the board would be willing to move forward with this tonight, and with those conditions that the engineer, Mr. Dunn, had recommended in the beginning, as well as Mr. Vice Chairman's conditions with the fire department's approval and providing that letter. Thank you.
Okay. So, John, do you want to go ahead with your motion?
My motion is the motion made by Jonathan Gale is to continue this hearing and keep it open for continued discussion and for information to be submitted by the applicant as requested by the board for our next hearing date, which, if the applicant is available, would be on November 30th. If not, the applicant can indicate this evening whether or not that date is applicable. We can come up with another date for another hearing.
Well,
but to keep it open.
We already set that.
That date for our meeting, yes.
Okay, so is there a second?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Greg
good.
Logan. The voting members are Peter, myself, and you, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
All right, I'm just curious of what Peter might have. Peter, you have anything you want to add to what we discussed on this matter?
Well, sitting here listening to everybody's side, and Zach tried to talk about it a little bit, where we can't overstep our bounds. And the building inspector who encompasses a lot of this is the one who's going to determine whether or not to get a building permit, whether they have to go to the
That's correct.
conservation. And I understand you're just giving them a piece of advice, but I don't want the members who are going to vote on this to be swayed by something that they shouldn't be swayed by. It's like asking what color you're going to paint the house. You can't do that. If there's historical facts, artifacts on this property, it's not for the zoning board to take that into consideration. What's before is whether or not we're going to grant the relief for the frontage. And I just don't want to lose the big picture here. I understand what John is saying. We should probably continue it because of the nor'easter that came through, and a lot of people who might have opinions want to be heard, but they can't be. And that's a legitimate reason to have the meeting continue. But don't look at the big. Don't forget the big picture, which is whether or not we should grant them the relief of the 8 or 9 feet that they need.
Right.
And I believe the motion that I made was applicable to the continuation because of the potential power
Right.
outage and because of the information
And I agree with
that
you,
was
John.
accepted.
The only thing I agree with you, John. The only thing I wouldn't agree with is picking another date. It's either going to be the 30th or not until December. I don't think as a board we should just have
And
another
that's
meeting.
actually what I meant, Peter. I should have clarified
Sure,
it.
I'm
That's what I
sorry.
meant. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
That's all I have, guys.
All right, so there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman. Greg Logan.
Any discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, Greg Logan.
All right, so it's been continued to the next public hearing date, which we will continue. Again, obviously the public hearing is continued then as well.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, continue to which date, please?
That was November 30th. Right, Perry?
Okay, November 30th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That'll be via Zoom.
Yes, sir.
Via Zoom again. And you don't want to see us in person?
Not yet.
Not yet.
And hopefully
Well,
no
I drove
storms.
by, you know what? I drove by Town Hall on the way home. All the lights were on. No one was home though.
Yeah.
It's often the case. No.
The old Town Hall was quite busy. A lot of cars there.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So we're moving on.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
So we have a last thing here. Terry, before I go on to the business B, is Brendan here tonight on this meeting?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
That's fine. But before I go on to item agenda 4B, which is more a discussion amongst the board, for the public input, is Brendan here tonight?
He is.
Yes,
he is.
If he is
Yes,
here,
he
I don't want to make him wait any longer. So
Sure.
I'm going to skip over B for now and go to C. We have public input. Brendan. Benavides regarding Middle Street property. So if he is on tonight, the floor is his, and if he's ready.
Yes, if you just give Brendan a moment to unmute himself.
Hello, I'm here.
There he is. Go ahead, Brendan, you have the floor.
Well, I talked to Carrie maybe a couple months ago. I'm looking to put a second structure on my parents' property. And I was wondering if there's any way to do that, how I would go about doing that, if it's even possible. So I'm just looking for a little advice on what I can and can't do as to, to be able to do this.
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of factors that play into that in terms of the property. just as a general point of discussion, do you have any specifics on the property size?
I do. That there is 205 feet of frontage, I believe, on my parents' property, and it's very long. It's maybe 20 acres or so, maybe a little more. So there's a lot of room. It goes straight back. There's a lot of room in the back. I was wondering if there's a possibility of putting in a road, a common driveway, something like that, to be able to do that.
No,
Going on. Sorry,
without- I said you don't. There's no two structures allowed on a single property. You have to go for a subdivision, or if you want to put a road in. That's probably going to be your best bet, or to seek to have the property cut up into pieces so that you can. But it doesn't sound like you have enough frontage to do that. But the zoning board doesn't have the right to grant you relief to put another house on the same lot.
So my parents are open to doing anything that is needed. If we need to subdivide it, we can subdivide it. If I have to buy property from them, whatever we need to do, we're open to ideas. I really love this piece of property, and I don't really want to leave. It's got everything. It's got everything I need and everything I want on it. So I'm just looking to see what's possible to be able to do this.
Harry,
So the image that's up is the image in the center is my parents' property, and the little star on the left is a general area where I may want to put a house. And then the two rectangles are my neighbors who abut the property.
Okay.
Just kind of an idea as to what's the layout of the land.
Brandon, is this over 8 acres?
Yes, the whole property is over 8 acres.
And you have how many feet of frontage?
205, I believe.
I'm not 100% sure, but this might fall under the retreat lot. No, Peter?
I don't think so. There's no water or sewer there on Middle Street.
There is water.
There's water.
There is water on Middle Street?
Yeah,
I'm
on Middle
open to putting a well.
Well, yeah, but there is water running by your street though, right, Brandon?
Yes, we have town water.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it does or doesn't. It's kind of new to me.
I'd have to look into it, Greg.
Is it possible to put? Oh, sorry. Is it possible to put go for a variance to put a guest home with larger square footage than the minimum or than the maximum under my parents' name?
A guest home? No. You could put an addition on a house. That would be just with the building inspector. But to have a separate dwelling, the town doesn't allow that. It's not even something that the zoning board can grant.
Okay, I thought I saw in the zoning bylaws that the owners are allowed to put a guest home. Has to be a minimum of, I think, 500 square feet, but no more than 900 square feet.
That's what we call it, what the in-law apartment, isn't that what we talked about?
Right.
Yeah.
That's not, that doesn't include a separate structure?
No.
I'm grabbing the book now, but I'm curious what the term guest home
Is somebody talking
to. That's me, David. I'm just trying to, I have the zoning bylaws in front of me, trying to see what.
You're breaking up, Zach.
Yeah, you're muffled.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm not sure. I mean, Middle Street. Yeah. I'm not positive. You'd have to get an engineer involved in this, but I'm not sure if the retreat lot, I believe it was 8 plus or more acres.
Right.
And I don't think we can make a two non-conforming lots.
Right.
But if he's got more than he needs for the frontage, if there's water, that's possible, but you're gonna have to do some engineering, Brandon.
Okay.
And again, you might wanna check with, I know Peter's been on the board a lot longer, and this retreat lots came on fairly recently in the last year or two about this retreat lot thing, and we really haven't done much with it, but that might be a possibility for you that I see, but at the same note.
Have you gone to the building inspector, Brandon?
I would.
I talked to him briefly.
I'd go to the building inspector first.
Sorry,
I talked to him
just said that, yeah.
What's his opinion?
When I spoke with him, he told me the frontage of the property, and he did say that I could go for a variance with, I think it was a minimum of 40 feet for a retreat lot. but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to put a driveway where we can kind of only put a driveway, which would be where these arrows are.
Oh, I see.
That goes between a garage and like a shed and a pool. It's wide enough, I think it has to be a minimum of 20 feet, correct?
I see.
Yeah.
So it
It's
is wide
40
enough to
feet.
do that?
It's for a retreat lot, it's required, 40 feet is required, I believe.
Yeah, and that puts them under that, so now we have two non-conforming.
I think that was
Okay.
one of the issues.
Yeah.
Did the driveway have to go there?
Right.
Maybe I would think that's the best spot because of the septic systems that are there
Okay.
for the other structures. And I think if
You're
it was to
running into
go
a host
on the
of
side of the
problems.
garage, we'd have to move a septic system, which is fine, but I think the driveway would be too close to the property line. Doesn't it have to be a minimum of 10 feet from a property line?
We've allowed it close to the property lines in the past. I just, like I said, I think Zach and Pete hit it on the head. I'd go see the building inspector and mention to him about a retreat lot. See what he thinks in that matter, but again, it's a lot of engineering.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
So-
to answer your general question, I don't think there's, how should I put this? I don't think that there's no solution. What is the solution? I don't know. Is it going to be easy or cost effective? I don't know, but I personally wouldn't, I'm not going to jump the gun and say, nope, nothing you can do. Sorry. I mean, obviously if it came before us, who knows how it would vote with whatever came before us, but I wouldn't say there's no hope. I don't know what, obviously Greg and Peter will have more experience, but I would be hard pressed to say there's nothing they can do, but I don't know for sure.
Right. I mean, our job is to help you, not hurt you.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if there's a way, the building inspector will set you in the right direction.
He is so much. I mean, Terry showed me the other day at the office. I was like, holy crap, he has so much land there. I mean, but if that's something the building inspector suggested, I mean, he is the expert on the building for a reason. I mean, I would say, so to answer again your general question, retreat lots, yes, that is something the zoning board does and would entertain for sure. It would just be a matter of if the building inspector says, yes, that's the way you should go about doing it. If he says yes, then I would say, yeah, by all means, come before us.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, of course, Carrie.
So in our retreat lot in the bylaw, it says that the said lot shall have a minimum street frontage of 40 feet and a width of not less than 20 feet at all points. So he's got to have the street frontage of 40 feet. And then he could go, his driveway could go in, still have the requirements so the fire truck can get down because it's got to do that. But he does have to have the 40 feet of frontage. And I
Right.
think if he's talking about doing where the arrows are, I think the other issue he's going to have on that is under our dimensional requirements, he won't meet the requirements of the setbacks, the side setbacks. If that makes sense, how you have the street or a driveway and then you have another property with the setbacks. So you have to
Yeah,
have,
we
I
do a
think
hard
it's
arch.
15 feet
Yeah.
and going in between those two structures. So Mr. Benavides and I chatted about that as well, because then we were also talking about going on the sides of the property, on this side. I don't know if you can see my pointer,
Yep.
but on this side or on this side. And it was kind of hard to tell if he was able to do that because of the setback requirement, because I think it's 15 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the minimum side yard setbacks are 15 feet. So he kind of, it's a very funny property.
But hey, I mean, that's kind of what we do, you know what I mean? So, I mean,
That could be what the variance discussion Mr. Benavides had with the building commissioner.
Right, and if that's the case, and then he comes before us looking for variances from certain things that were just talked about today, so.
Correct.
The engineering would tell you all the things you need to come in front of the board for. You just don't want to come in front for frontage if there's something else that needs to be. Because then you'd have to do it again. And that's why I think Jim was hesitant to do much with it, but I really think he has, he's got more than enough land. It's the frontage. As you can see, the property right next door to him at the bottom of the picture, if anybody's got it, it's got a lot less frontage
Yeah.
than the one that he's proposed to be utilizing. So it is in the neighborhood. There is things, but again, we're not, he's only asking us our opinion. The only thing I see is a retreat lot, only way possible, if it's even possible.
Yeah. My opinion is either way, I wouldn't get too dejected yet. I think there are definitely discussions that could and should be had. It's just a matter of what you, Brennan, decide that you want to do in terms of what you want to apply for and what you think the building inspector says is the best route to go.
Yeah, Jim will give you definitely the right direction.
Okay. Well, I think that answered all my questions. I really appreciate everything that you guys have done.
Of course, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
You got
Good
it.
luck with your project.
All right. You guys have a good night. Thank you.
Yep. All right, so we have a couple things to discuss. One more actually literal item agenda, and then I have some things under public input later on. But we're going to go to agenda item 4B, review, discuss, and act. Incorporate applicant's responsibility of legal fees for case review and written decision on application, which kind of stemmed from something that Carrie and I talked about the other day, which is who pays. Oh, I know what the answer is, but we pay. But when a variance or special permit, whatever, is denied and the legal decision has to be written, who pays for that? At this point, we do, even though you think, well, why should we be doing it? It's the applicant that wanted this. We have nothing in writing, really in detail, saying that the applicant should pay for it. And the other day I was at the office with Carrie and we looked up, I forget what town it was, Carrie. It might have been in Bristol County, or at least this area.
Yeah.
Where there is a clause saying, when it lists all the responsibilities of the applicant, it was, I understand that I may be susceptible to any legal fees incurred by the decision, something along those lines. So I just kind of wondered that, Dad, I mean, you've obviously been around for more denied cases than I have. Is this anything you guys have talked about? Is this anything that you think we should consider, or what's your you, Greg, your experience on collecting fees for a denial written decision?
Well, I certainly think the applicant should, in all cases, pay for the written decision,
yes,
whether it be approved or denied. But again, we had no means up until today, when you're addressing it, to bill the applicant because the applicant had no legal responsibility to pay the bill, and they had no incentive to pay the bill. So certainly, if you make it as part of the application process, that hey, no matter what happens here, you owe a $600-$800 bill or potential bill to write the decision. Let them, if they know up front that's a gamble that they get to take.
Yeah, that's kind of what
I think they should write the decision.
I do too. That's one thing I talked about with Carrie, is that's like saying, oh, I drove this car for a month and I don't want it anymore. It's like, well, you're already using it. Like I mean, it's kind of an odd example, but the whole point is that, like, what, all of a sudden you didn't get it, so now you're not paying for it. It's like, I mean, this,
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, John.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you can finish that, guys. Didn't know if I could be heard or not. I'm sorry.
Okay,
yeah. I'm sorry.
So I mean, Dad, I mean, you don't think it's unreasonable for us to include this, is what I'm saying?
No, we have in the past billed applicants, and actually some attorneys for the applicant have even written the decisions for us. This was before we had Marguerite, and I was with Joe Pacheco, and I would actually write the decisions.
Yeah.
I would do what Marguerite does, and on occasion, an applicant's attorney would write the decision for us, and even want us to sign them that night.
Right.
But yes, I agree with that they should be paying for the decisions. It's either that or we increase our budget to account for the 10 or 15 decisions that get written every year or so.
Zach, and if I can ask, I don't know if Margarita's still with us or not. I'll ask my couple of questions all at one time. Do we know, first of all, how much we are billed out for each year for decisions that are not in favor of the applicant? Number one, is that 2,000, 6,000? What's the average over the past 3 to 5 years, for example? Second of all, if we did this, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm relying on somebody else to educate me. Is this something that, because we're changing the fee structure, potentially would have to go to town meeting? And third of all, is this something that we potentially would want to consider in terms of changing the actual fee for the applicant at the time of application to incorporate the aggregate amount for what might be a negative decision to be written? And the reason I put that last part in there is because if there's a negative decision, it has to be written, and then we're going to bill the applicant for it. Potentially we become a collector. And if we become a collector and the applicant is not making a payment, what do we do then?
Yeah, Dad, that I do. I have
5 or 6. Go ahead.
I was curious to say about, what you guys would do in that case where applicant goes, great, I'm not you. What legal leg do we have to stand on?
Well, we didn't. And about 5 or 6 years, no, more than 5 or 6 years ago now, maybe as much as 10 years ago, we almost doubled our rates to include paying for decisions that to avoid having to ask the applicant for to pay for the decisions. We were getting peanuts, it was like $75 to apply to come to the zoning board of appeals. Now, wow. Kerry, what do we get now?
A bit more than that.
Yeah, it's
$750.
now oh my gosh.
Yeah, $750, I think.
Yeah, so we raised
it's now $750.
We raised those rates about 10 years ago to account for us writing decisions. And no, it doesn't go to a town meeting. It doesn't go to the selectmen. It's just we set our own fees. If we want to increase that to $1,000 now and say that includes a written decision, now it might be a good time to do that. That way, the applicant who either gets approved or denied is paying for it in the as part of the application fee. It's just with budgeting, you have revenue that comes in that goes to the town coffers as opposed to offsetting our budget, so to speak. Right. Because we still get bills from Marguerite for writing the decision, but don't show an income to offset that because the income goes to the town. I guess that's where I suggest, I wonder if it's worth asking either Carrie or Marguerite to give us, to defer. Obviously, I don't think we're going to vote on this tonight, but to give us an aggregate over the past 3 to 5 years, because there may have been the same number of decisions, but the law firm may have raised its rates. Sure. So I think it's important for us to know that, because that makes a difference on whether we're going to try and ask for an increase in budget for next year, or we want to raise fees or do nothing.
Yep.
So if I may.
Yeah, of course.
So there's two things we have to take a look at is, for example, the very last case that we just had, that was a denial, if you recall. Yep. That last bill for her to do the decision was $672. So that gives something, and it doesn't look like you guys had a whole heck of a lot of decisions, but I can certainly ask for a spreadsheet.
We haven't really. We've been so busy with Strawberry Fields and
and that's what I'm looking for.
Relatively quiet in that sense.
Exactly. What I'm looking through in the past, this past fiscal year, most of it is like the 40B stuff, and that wouldn't apply.
And rates change all the time. Even if we did have something a year ago, who the heck knows what? I mean, not who the heck knows, but it could very easily have changed since then. So
exactly. The other issue is, as far as raising your application fee, one thing we have to keep in mind is, okay, yes, you can raise your application fee, but you have to remember is that money goes into the general ledger, but legal fees get paid out of the professional technical line. Right. So if that's the route that we're going to take, then I think we really have to watch our professional technical line And next fiscal year, we're gonna have to request an increase in that. If that
Well,
makes
it's almost,
sense, right?
it does. It does
Right.
make sense. And that's what I was saying before. It goes into the
Right.
town coffers. We are better off having the applicant separately in your application process. You're better off having the applicant say, there's a line in there saying that you agree to pay the legal
Right.
fees. That way you
And-
can actually bill the applicant for the legal fee
Right.
and offset the professional technical account, as opposed to, or letting them pay the technical professional account, as opposed to just going into the town as general fund.
As the general fund, right? And I think that's in the past, that's why it was done that way, is keeping our professional technical line down.
Right.
And also, it's also hard to judge how much you want to do that professional technical line, because you just don't know, you can't foresee how many cases.
It's a rate. It's a rate for a reason, it's not a flat fee.
Yeah.
I think it's
just don't
also,
know.
if you put a line, if you put a line in there that says, will you pay the legal fees, up or down, thumbs up, thumbs down, I think that line has to have more clarification as to legal fees, to right decision, because theoretically we can have a case where we need Marguerite to be available for, 2 or 3 meetings for 2 or 3 hours. And that legal fee could become several $1,000s without even a decision. So we need to be careful about how we couch that.
Right.
Right.
Carrie, so what do you have in front of us right now on the screen? Is that a draft that you wrote, or is that a sample from the past, or?
It's actually, I updated it to, thinking of incorporating it into our current application package. And it's basically just a form of the applicant saying that, yes, they do agree to pay the project review consultant fees, which would fall under the realm of the legal opinion that Marguerite would be writing, or the findings and decisions. So it looks like and I remember when I first started working for the ZBA, that was something that we had in the application packet, excuse me. And I don't know, somewhere along the lines, I don't know if somehow it just got forgotten. Yeah, somehow it got forgotten. So I found that in I have an old file of all the old applications that we used to have. So I just kind of dressed it up a little bit, and this is what we used to use. And I even remember at one point, there was a case that the zoning board had that I still worked. And there was someone who had a denial, and we had a legal bill, and they were refusing to pay it. And I produced that signed form saying, you agreed to that. And once I produced that, they ended up paying.
I think I remember that. I think I remember, like, in the audience when I was little, actually. That sounds familiar.
They ended up paying for that. And the other issue is going around to collecting it. There's also the issue of, there's a form that goes around when someone ever goes for a building permit, or I think a building permit, where each department has to sign off of. And if I have a list of people who can and can't get a building permit. And if that person ever goes for a building permit, I can say, sorry, you have an outstanding bill with us. I'm not signing on that until you come clean with us.
Or being the chairman of the zoning board, I could just not sign off on the decision.
Exactly. I mean, you have that as well. So
it's actually what the state and the county does now. If they have a vendor who's behind, they will not renew a contract or an agreement.
Yeah. So there's, I mean, it's kind, it can be a little tedious on that part, but I mean, it's just writing down a name on a list for me.
Right. Not that I want to change the conversation, but just because you're talking about the application process, do you include in the application process, when they come in with their application, a letter that says that they signed saying that they agree to an extension?
Yes, that I do.
Okay.
That is definitely in there.
Because I remember not that long ago, we had to have somebody sign that.
That's right.
And I was thinking that should be part of the application process, that they just sign it along with the documents that they sign. Okay, we can go back to the other. I was just wondering if we still had that in there.
Yes, because I remember that was another thing that was always like, make sure they sign that too.
Right. And if the meeting wasn't going their way, they didn't necessarily want to sign the extension.
Yep. Exactly. So that was another one, but, yeah, so it just looks like maybe somewhere along the line, somehow this form got dropped by accident or,
Yep.
I'm
if,
not
if
sure.
if we were to use a format similar to what we're discussing, would it make sense if it, at least to put, that they're responsible for those feeds not to exceed, and we put it, we have an X figure in there, whether it's 500, 1,000, 1,500, whatever. Or are we going to ultimately then ask these folks to be held accountable from $1? Because that changes the nature of what we do now when we have Marguerite available.
Well,
I think
I don't think we should put a dollar amount, because if it ends up being a case that goes on for a while and Marguerite needs to be there.
Right, but what I mean is right
Marguerite
now,
isn't necessarily, the written decision is different than what Marguerite bills us for when she's joining us for a meeting.
no, and I agree with you, Peter, but I want to be careful in this form that needs to define. I think that form needs to, unless I can't see it, but unless it's defined specifically for decision, because if it's not,
Right. It should be just for decision. That's all they should be paying. And under professional or technical fees is what we should be paying Marguerite for from tonight, for example.
Right.
She sat with us for 20 minutes and she's going to bill us for those 20 minutes. That's going to come from professional and technical fees, not
Right.
from
I
the
just
applicant.
want to make sure that that's clear in the form.
Right.
And that's
Yep.
I guess that's what I'm saying, so that we don't have any people, bumping back at us later and saying, but it didn't say, or it did say.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's something to think about for at least the next meeting. So, I mean, I guess, Carrie, if between now and then, if you could maybe get an updated fee schedule from Marguerite's office, or it's almost a moot point to go back and look at the next 3 years of the decisions, because that's like saying, oh, well, I paid for gas 3 years ago, X, Y, Z. It's like, well, but why are we going to use that as an average now if it's 3 years ago? So I almost don't care what we paid last week. It's what we're going to be paying in the future is what we need to be thinking about, not what we could pay based on the past.
Right.
If we were going to decide this tonight, I'd be like, yeah, Carrie, go look really quick and see what you can find. We can't get an answer tonight, but obviously we have time to discuss this. So I think within that time, we should get the most updated fee schedule that we can.
Okay. I'll be happy to.
And I guess maybe a little more detail and more research as to what other towns do. Just for Carrie, if you feel like you need to find a way to word it properly or format it, I mean, I know that one town I found in your office when I Googled it really quick. I'm sure there's so much more that we just didn't look at right then and there. But
yeah. Yep.
All right. So I have a couple quick things under public input. One of them is something that we talked about a while ago, and this came up again pre-COVID, was the zoning board / the office manager of the zoning board being involved in any kind of 40B committee activities. And this is coming up again because there was an instance where Carrie was called upon by John in the 40B committee to be involved in a workshop, and I unfortunately had to put a stop to it because I was like, whoa, I think we said that we weren't going to go about having the job entail that. And then John reminded me, well, if pre-COVID, pre-Strawberry Fields even, Jonathan Gray said, oh, hey, I don't mind. It's only, a little bit of time here and there. I don't mind doing that. And I think because John said that, there was some confusion with, that was John Gray saying he did not mind, not necessarily all encompassing this position, and whoever does this will be doing it. And also at the time, the job was not involving planning board. So if this was still him, he might say, oh yeah, now I'm not doing it. Now I can't do it. But a year ago I could. And so John and I had a conversation about it, and John just asked that we revisit this because Carrie was involved in this, and he just wanted to see what Carrie felt like. And it's not really anything we need to vote or necessarily decide on. It's more just a discussion as to, Carrie, what your position now entails for the merged boards and so on.
So, the chairman and I had a brief discussion, and clerk and I had a brief discussion as well. And I understand the reasoning behind it is getting more departments and the townspeople more a better understanding of a 40B and what's needed, or what's I don't, forgive me, Jonathan.
Educated the general public on what.
Educated,
Right,
yes,
exactly,
educated what a
yes.
40B is. Yes, that's a much better way. And it's definitely needed. There's no question about it. And I think it's got to be just done something as a volunteer basis. I did explain to Jonathan that, I would be happy to help with emails, in setting up some meetings, but I did have to bring to his attention that it is difficult now that we have the two departments joined together. And there's a lot of demands right now, especially I do have some pretty significant applications coming through with the planning board between a solar, and then I do have and it's slipping my mind right now. There's a couple other things that I've gotten wind. Marijuana. I have a couple marijuana things coming up.
Go win a marijuana, Carrie.
Yeah. Ooh, no, just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I have gotten a little bug in my ear that we have some pretty significant applications coming through that involves some special permits for marijuana facilities. I haven't received them yet. And of course, it's something that you hear. And I know that's And
one reason why we're bringing it up too is that, obviously, as Carrie has access to 40B information because she's on the zoning board and we deal with 40B. Yeah. And, obviously, by all means, you or anyone in this position is more than welcome to share any kind of information. And the reason why I had to put a stop to her being involved on that conference call or meeting that would have happened was, whoa, that there's handing out information, and then there's being involved on time. It's like, okay, well, one, was Carrie or is Carrie going to be volunteering? And if, well, no, Carrie goes, I'm too busy, I can't volunteer, I'll get paid for it. Who pays for that? That would be the zoning board, and that's not what the zoning board does.
So the reason that I brought this up in the first place, Zach, as you alluded to, was the conversation we had when Jonathan Gray was in the position as opposed to Carrie, and the positions were not merged at the time. So
right, and I think
exactly, and we all want to be clear on that, and I do as well. I think my reason for bringing it back up is because what was clear with Strawberry Fields, I think to all of us, was that the public as well as
John, with all due respect, I was in mid-sentence and you interrupted me.
I apologize. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Secondly, the discussion is not, 40B, strawberry. We all know why why the public should know more about 40Bs. Absolutely. It's something that the 40B committee does. I am sorry that you guys don't have someone to set up your meetings. That's just how it goes when you're not a board that's publicly funded by the taxpayers. So to then put on the hat of, well, I'm gonna ask the zoning board office manager to get involved, is you're not her boss, John. You don't sign her paychecks. You are not in a position to ask her of anything. So for you to say, well, I think 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, we talked about John Gray being involved. I'm going to go have Carrie be involved with this. It puts Carrie or anyone in that position in an awkward position where it's like, that's not my job. I don't do that. So now if the zoning board suffers from this, on whose dime and whose time is that going to? Well, we can't bill the 40B committee. So who do we bill? And now Carrie is a union position doing something that's not in her now she's working for another board technically. So I don't think, if it was clear with Carrie that it's volunteer, that's up to her to decide if she wants to do that. So, I mean, even if it was clear, yes, the office manager will be involved. I with all due respect, John, you should not have gone to her. You should have gone to me as her boss to say, hey.
So Zach,
what-
I did I am going to interrupt you for a minute just to explain something. I did reach out to the monitoring agent on my own. I did not go to you or go to Carrie because I expected to do this on my own. The monitoring agent sent an email back to Carrie and me asking to have a conference call to talk about putting this together. That's how this came about. I don't want you to think that I went behind your back and I went to Carrie first. I did not. So I want to make that very clear. I went to the monitoring agent to do it on my own. And then the monitoring agent, as I said, sent this email to Carrie and I, can we have a meeting? In fact, Carrie and I spoke and said, I didn't know she was going to you and me both, et cetera, et cetera. That's how this came about. So there is no and was no attempt to go behind your back. Yes, you are the chairperson of the committee. I'm very, very aware of that. I would never have done that. And I want to make that really clear. So that's when this conversation started to be happening. So just leaving it that out there.
So then what is it that you want to get out of this discussion tonight? I mean, I've made it clear. I think Carrie's made it clear. Aside from giving some information, what are you hoping that the zoning board's role can be in this?
All I'm hoping that the zoning board's role can be is as a facilitator. And when I say facilitator, I can do all the legwork. I'm the liaison between the 40B that we all know hasn't met in a long time and the ZBA. And there are people asking questions about the 40B process. We ran into this through Strawberry Fields. All I'm asking is that Carrie, if she's willing and able, be able to help me simply coordinate sending out emails, getting back emails, keeping track, and facilitating the meeting on the night of the Zoom or nights of the Zoom. I'm willing to do all of the other work and put it together. And whether it's going back and forth, doing legwork, setting up agendas, I can do all of that myself. I have no problem doing that. I just need the facilitation support, which total amount of time for one meeting, for example, for an hour and a half meeting, might be 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours over a month and a half or 2 months or something like that. That's what I'm looking at.
So
that's what I'm asking for.
When you say if Carrie is willing and able to help you, there's a very key thing we're missing here. Volunteer or paid?
And that's the question mark I can't answer. I don't know if as the zoning board, because we do 40B projects, we have to hear 40B projects, if we can do it through our budget or not. I don't know that.
I mean, it's not in our job. It's not in the board's definition to do it. I mean, it's in the board's definition to supply any information that we can, which, is public record and but I mean, you say like, up to 5 or 6 hours, but it's like, I mean, we all know how meetings go. This meeting will take 45 minutes and next thing you know, we're here 3 hours later. Not tonight, I'm just using that example, but
right.
So, that's why, it's not in the zoning board description because it's not something that the board does. So, I mean, I don't think it's pre the two boards merging that position, maybe that time would have been there. I don't think it is there now, Carrie. I mean, you're one to, experience that more than I would, but I mean, is it? I don't know what kind of involvement at this point. I don't think it's even worth going into, basically, Carrie, I think it should be, if you want to be involved in any kind of, I think it should be on your time, which you should not. I'm not telling you should do that, but I don't think it can, it can't be on the clock on the zoning board or planning board.
All right.
I mean, Carrie,
Yeah, I think it would be
See,
very
a
difficult
long
at this
time
point.
ago,
Go ahead, Peter.
a while back, when
You're breaking up, Peter.
At all, when and she was all. You guys remember Rita, who was the zoning board secretary, and she was also assistant to the town accountant, and she actually punched in and out of the zoning board time clock. So she worked maybe 8 hours a day 4 hours for the zoning board, where that's what the 4 hours were open, and then she shut down the zoning board and became assistant to the town accountant. And there were different lines that did not get crossed. And now that you've merged the planning board and the zoning board, the lines get crossed. You no longer work just for the planning board, where if somebody comes in and has a zoning question, you put the zoning hat on. If somebody comes in and has a planning question, you put the planning hat on. So it's a little different today than just saying, can she work 4 hours for another board, and then that those 4 hours come from somebody's budget. Whose budget does it come from? Like I said, it's kind of crossed the lines now, where it's different than just being a general secretary for. I don't mean to just call you a secretary, but a general administrator for one board.
Carrie, how do you build your
when it
time?
comes to
So the payroll is broken up 60-40. So the planning board does 60% and ZBA does 40%.
No,
you probably do more like 80% for the planning board than you do for the zoning board.
Yeah, not that we should nickel and dime that aspect
No,
of it. But
I'm not meaning that at all.
I know what you mean though. It's like, there might be a week where Strawberry Fields is on and you're doing 90% zoning and 10% planning. I mean, obviously, who knows? And I know it took a long time for the selectmen to merge this position. So it's not like this was done haphazardly. We just decided today to merge them. But obviously, they've done the research behind it to decide how to do it.
Yeah.
John, a question to you, John, is
yes.
Can't you go to the zoning to the selectmen and ask for a stipend for this?
Well, that was my next thought, Peter, was that's something that maybe we could do,
right?
Or I could do. I've tried to reach out to others. I haven't gotten the response that I would like to get, and I don't mean affirmative or not affirmative. I just haven't gotten a response. Sure. From people related to 40B. So that's what I would like to do, is have the 40B committee, to be honest, go to Board of Selectmen. They have, available cash to ask for a stipend of a few $100s.
Right.
Whether it's whomever we're going to hire or pay to do it, or we can supplement somebody to do it, even if it's Carrie.
Sure.
I don't have an objection to that at all. I really don't. And I do not. And I want to be clear. I don't expect Carrie to volunteer her time to do this. She puts in a lot of hours as it is. She's got a crazy juggling schedule to do as it is. Even I would just call her on the phone, I hear people in the background wanting her.
And I think that's why I got so passionate about it when I see how busy and stressed she is. And I think that day when the workshop was thrown into her, she was kind of like, whoa, what is this for? And I was like, okay, she's working harder than anybody I've seen work in that office. No offense to anybody there, but
Zach, I think she and I both had the same kind of reaction.
The workload that she has is unbelievable right now. So I can only imagine what it would like to see. Okay, I have 8 things on my list. I cross off 1, and now we threw on 2 more. Mm-hmm. So the last thing I want is to see her overworked or put in a position where she's like, I don't know who to say yes to because I don't know what this is for. So I have to stick up for her in that sense and say, that's kind of where I think I got so passionate about it, was because, my job is to watch out for the board, the taxpayers, and her. And if, I don't want her to be put in a position where she's got to feel like, well, I kind of have to volunteer, don't I? Which I'm not saying she did feel like that, but if she did, I did not want that to be the case.
Peter, the only concern I would have about going to the Board of Selectmen, for example, if it was approved by the chair of the 40B committee and I got a response, would be if they approved a stipend, let's just say $250, $500, whatever it would be to set this up, is then the question is, who do you pay the stipend to? Because they may say it has to be a town employee, it has to be a current administrative support person, et cetera, et cetera. And that is a whole nother ball of wax. I'm
sure
trying to put something together so that we can get ahead of the game before the next 40B comes up, or even for the 40B that's currently ongoing.
John, you said you don't have a clerk, correct?
No, we don't. What happened, Zach, is we had, oh gosh, who am I thinking of? Before Jonathan.
Nicole,
thank you.
Nicole, yeah.
Nicole was paid, I think it was 10 hours a month for the 40B committee. And that took us through doing the Serpent project and so forth, and
Right.
then into that. And then in the next budget, the FinCom voted to no longer fund the 40B committee at 10 hours. And that 10 hours per month was at that time allocated, because she was doing the ZBA work as well. It was allocated between that and the ZBA secretary or administrative support person. But it was a total of 10 hours per month.
Right.
So that's where that came about. I think they felt that 10 hours a month could be absorbed. That the attitude was it could be absorbed. And our attitude was almost what we're having a discussion about now. It can't necessarily be absorbed.
You're right. It could 2 years ago, but you know.
Exactly. That's where we're kind of, chomping at what we were saying couldn't happen at the time for wanting that 10 hours a month. But again, you could also argue, well, they haven't met in 2 years.
Right. Right.
So, no, I hear what you're saying, Zach. I do, and I appreciate it. And I know, Carrie, you appreciate what we're trying to do, and I don't want to put you in a position that's uncomfortable. So
I appreciate everything from all of you. Thank you.
I don't want to see anyone overworked, and I don't want to see anyone put in an uncomfortable position. That's the two things that I'm not going to stand for.
So what I'm going to suggest is, Peter, your comment was well taken, and give me an opportunity, if everybody would, we'll table this for now. And I will try once again to have conversation with the chair of the 40B, if I can't, that may facilitate a conversation with the TA, and going from there to the Board of Selectmen and asking for some sort of a stipend, even if it has to potentially go to my secretary or whoever it would go to. I don't know.
Okay.
Let's see what happens. Greg, do you have any thoughts?
He's muted again.
No, I've been listening. It's all new to me. I do remember when it was Nicole and she wasn't working for the planning board at the time, and we discussed a few hours here and there. I do remember all that conversation a few years back. As I agree, things have changed, and I didn't know any of that was going on. This is news to me.
Yep.
This is all very recent. That's why.
Yep.
Last thing I have under public input, which I'm sure you guys have all seen floating about in your email, is we do have the updated, not updated, but the renewal of our conflict of interest class that needs to be against the whole town, every board, every committee member, town employee, anybody. Carrie, do you want to just go into a little bit more detail on the email you sent out and the links and all that stuff?
Well, yes, but forgive me, I did not get a chance to send out the links or the email.
Okay. Okay.
I was going to do that today, but town hall was closed.
Yep.
My apologies. So tomorrow you will get them. And then what I will do is I will send out the signature pages that I need. I'll send them out electronically so that you guys can send them back to me. Just all you have to do is use your little finger and send it back. Greg, you're awesome at it, Greg. You're a pro. So is Zach.
Some of us need the class and some just need the acknowledgement, correct? I'm trying to find, I have the hard copy of the paper you gave me at the office.
Correct. So you were so kind when you stopped by, and Susan, forgive me, I meant to have you sign that today and I completely forgot.
So
it's the conflict of interest. So there's a packet from the town clerk that requires you to say, yes, I received the packet, but also every 2 years, you guys get to take a test from the state saying, yes, I understand. And you can't fail the test, but you have to take the test. And at the end of the test, it gives you this certificate that you have to print out and provide it to the town clerk. So I'll be sending that link out to the test. And the town clerk is respectfully requesting that you guys do it ASAP. So I will send that to you, and hopefully you have some time this weekend to get that done and get it back to me.
It's a pretty serious thing. I mean, we saw an example of it today with and one thing is a big it's kind of like a hidden thing that no one really pays attention to, is the appearance of a conflict of interest, whether there is one or not. For example, my dad and I being related, being on the same case, it can appear to be that there's a conflict of interest there. Who's to say we're not we know the guy down the street and we're trying to help him out. Obviously, we're not, but that's what their appearance is. So that's why we have to disclose. And so the ethics committee said, no, you and your father actually, you can serve on the same case as long as you disclose you are related and give the applicant the chance to approve or deny that. And then if they're okay with it, then go ahead. If not, then try to rearrange the voting members. John Gale saw an example of that where he could not serve as a voting member on the 40B we just had because he publicly says this was involved in a 40B development as well by the same developer and could not serve as a, well, he didn't want to appear as biased because he knew the developer from working with him before.
Right. And it wasn't just that I knew the developer, it was that I still had a relationship with that developer and that our development wasn't even finished.
Right.
And because of that, and because I was a pro temp trustee as well, there are a number of factors, but it simply the fact that I had a relationship with the developer because the development wasn't finished could have been misconstrued. If the development had already been finished, that would have been a different story. But no, it was, we actually got a ruling from the state that I should recuse myself.
So, you know, it comes in all shapes and sizes, and, you know, you obviously will all go over this in the training, but you want, as a voting member, or even if you're not a voting member, if there's a case before us that you feel like you, for whatever reason, personal, financial, you cannot be a voting member, but any kind of personal attachments, whether you know somebody, it's tough when you're a small town and you know everybody, because like, well, I could know 10 people that I see in town, but you know, if there's anything that you feel like might give you a biased voting, you have to abstain from being a voting member and excuse yourself. So, you know, there's all that kind of stuff we do have to consider when we have cases before us that, you know, we just need to refresh our memory every 2 years on that class to make sure we all are aware of that.
And I'm just going to add, Zach, I know this isn't easy, especially, you know, your dad and Greg, for example, you know, you guys have lived in this town for a long, long time. You know so many people, but you know so much about, you know, the rules and the regs and the procedures. You know, you're almost in many ways our go-tos at times. And, you know, I'm sure it creates difficult positions because you guys know everybody in town.
Right.
So, you know, that's just, it's hard sometimes. It's not easy. And you have to say, no, I can't vote on this one.
Basically, it boils down to we wouldn't want a decision to be made by us, and we find out that, oh, you guys ruled on that, and you know, we have to say our reasons for voting when we vote on something. So we have to make sure that we are giving reasons for that go along with the zoning bylaws. Obviously, you know, we want to make sure that those coincide. So, yep. Oh, someone talking?
Nope, just you.
Okay, just me. I thought my dad's name came across, but are there any questions for now on the conflict of interest laws? I'm sure we'll all read about it in that class, but is there anything else anyone wants to touch on with this?
Thanks for the reminder. I appreciate it.
Right, no problem. Is there anything else any other members have to discuss?
When's the first snowstorm coming?
Yeah, no kidding already.
Tuesday morning, 6 a.m.
Well, if you listen to the Farmer's Almanac, we're in for a big one. I'm just saying.
I know the Farmer's Almanac is saying bad winter, bad winter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else, Carrie? Do you have anything?
No, we don't have any correspondence.
How about you in the office? Anything that needs to be shared? You good?
Oh, yes, I do. Actually, special town meeting. They are going to have the kennel bylaw on there, and they're changing it so that the ZBA will not be ruling on residential kennel bylaws. So, yes, that's a good thing. So, it'll take it out.
The first place.
Yeah, well, they did try to do it at annual.
Yeah.
And it got tabled again.
Right, I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah. So they finally worked with the town administrator, and they finally came to a conclusion on how to properly write the bylaw. And they have worded it so that instead of having them come for a special permit and, you know, go through the huge expense for someone, just me wanting 4 chihuahuas.
Right.
That's
It
rough.
will go, yeah, it'll just go straight to the Board of Health, and they'll still be subject to the proper inspections by the animal control officer and the Board of Health, and they have a procedure set up already.
It was a
But they
pretty,
won't have that huge burden and that expense for that. They still will have to come to the ZBA for a commercial, which makes sense, you know, if they're gonna have a kennel or a training facility or I don't know, doggy daycare, whatever, for a business, so to speak. But for certain, you know, an individual who just wants to have 4 dogs,
it was a
they
very,
are going to town meeting to change that bylaw,
There was a preliminary meeting the other night when they went over the
Yes.
bylaws, and that came up, and there was no discussion or objection to it by anybody who was
None.
present or online, so that looks good.
Correct. So the planning board had the public hearing on that. Tom Pyers, the chairman of the Board of Health, did the presentation. There was no objection. There was
That's good.
minimal
very-
discussion.
yeah,
So
it was something that really shouldn't have been there. I can understand. I remember that a few weeks ago, months ago, where that came up. Was like, what?
yeah,
It's
I know,
very,
I felt so
yeah.
bad for some of these residents who were calling and saying, okay, I want to do the procedure, and just listening to them practically crying when they heard
Carrie,
the
would you
expense,
say that
so.
it was a rough procedure?
Yeah, well, you know, someone who wanted to have, you know.
So,
4
thank you.
dogs-
Someone got my joke.
Yeah, I know.
Zach, you're
Yeah,
you're barking up the wrong tree on that one.
I know, right? You know, it was horrible relaying the message. Someone who wanted just to have 4 dogs for pets.
To hear the amount they had to pay to come up
To
with it.
hear the amount, you know, $750 for the application, and then, you know, even though the board was very considerate, saying that they would consider reducing the fee, but also they would have to notify the abutters and put the legal ad in. I mean, on top of, you know, 4 dogs, that's an expensive vet bill. I have 1 and I croak, so yeah, so good things are coming, as long as the town votes yes.
I don't see why they wouldn't, but who knows? I mean,
I can't see them voting no. Yeah, it would be a huge loss, but yeah, so
If they
that's
do,
what I
they're gonna-
have.
they're gonna get the
And,
gang of
oh,
dogs after
and Dighton Woods Road and Dighton Woods Circle is going to town meeting for their road acceptance. So that they had their public hearing with the planning board last week.
Okay.
So they got this sign off from Peter Williams. Everything was all set. Everything was good.
Good.
So, yeah.
All righty. All right. So that being said, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
No, we need the approval of the minutes first.
Oh, thank
sorry.
you. Did everyone have a chance to read them?
I did.
Yes.
It was a long time ago.
It was, yeah. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from August 25th, 2021?
Zach, you were all broken up, my friend.
Again? Oh, geez. Is there a motion?
I couldn't hear the date that you stated, Zach.
August 25th, 2021.
Mr. Chairman, Greg Logan, I make a motion to accept the minutes for August 25th of 2021.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, Jonathan Gale, I will second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Jonathan, I.
Greg, aye.
Peter, I.
All right.
Susan?
Yes.
Aye. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, Greg Logan, I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
A second, Susan Pritchard.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Jonathan, I.
All right. Good night, guys. Thank you.
See everyone later.
Right,
All right,
thank
bye-bye.
you.